Hello everyone, International Rations here again, and today I will be reviewing this 24-hour ration from Kazakhstan. I haven't had a huge amount of luck translating this, but as you can see it's menu 1, and I believe that's out of just 2 menus. This up here is pretty hard to translate with my phone, but it says something to the effect of for parachute or marine units. Maybe it's for the entire military, it's not really clear. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and just get right into this. As you can see, it's already segmented into 3 little plastic bags. One is for supper, lunch, and then breakfast. So breakfast is the one all the way on the end, and it just breaks off so you can continue using this as a carrying handle. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and see what's for breakfast. Alright, here we are. I have breakfast plated here and pretty much everything is translated. So we of course have these army biscuits, that's what the Russian translates to. We have this beef stew. This is some kind of a pearl barley stew or something to that effect. This is a chocolate and nut spread, so likely some kind of Nutella-like spread. It looks like it may have bust open there, so we'll have to be careful when we open that and make sure it's still good to eat. This is some kind of milk powder drink, but they did not include any kind of instructions on how to prepare it, so that might be fun. So one of these, I can't quite remember which, is peanuts, and one of these is something else that was pretty tricky on the translation. They may be some kind of prunes or raisins or something like that, but we'll see eventually. This is just some iodized salt. This is coffee, and of course we have those 2 packs of sugar. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and open up these biscuits first. Alright, so it looks like at least one has broken, but for being shipped all the way from Kazakhstan, they're in pretty good shape. Alright, before I start breakfast, I'm going to say a quick prayer and then I'll try this. It's extremely plain. Taste-wise, it tastes pretty much like there's only flour and water, maybe even not much or any salt in here. Extremely plain. You really can't get much plainer than these. The shell is pretty hard and brittle, but the inside is kind of odd, and it's kind of softly baked, a little bit more so than the rest of the cracker. I would assume these are baked quickly at a high temperature, which creates a hard outer shell and then a more soft inner texture to them. But I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and then we will try this with the chocolate spread. And I hope there's plenty of access to water in the Kazakhstani military, because these really dry your mouth out after a while. But let's go ahead and try that with the chocolate nut spread and see if that's any better. Maybe not the most convenient packaging ever, but I will say at least it kept it nice and sealed, so I can't complain too much. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and grab a spoon because I just realized I forgot to do that, and this ration doesn't seem to include any kind of cutlery. Alright, so here we go. Just went ahead and grabbed a normal kitchen spoon. And it looks quite a bit like Nutella. Let's go ahead and try this. It's been a while since I've had Nutella, but this tastes very similar. It's really good, it's nice and sweet, but let's go ahead and try this on one of these biscuits here. And interestingly enough, despite the lack of a defined flavor with these crackers, the Nutella flavor doesn't really shine through, but I do like the texture with the cracker, and you do get a little bit of that flavor. So honestly, I would say this is a really good combination, and it's definitely way, way better than just eating these crackers plain. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, then we'll make the coffee. Alright, there we go. Still dries your mouth out a bit, but it's not quite as bad with the hazelnut spread on it. Um, and it definitely tastes quite a bit better, and the texture is a lot better as well. So it's a pretty nice combination with that spread. Let's go ahead and open up this coffee. You can start off with this relatively small amount here. Alright, and next up we have these. I'm pretty sure these are the peanuts. Yep, definitely peanuts there. They have a kind of strange smell. I guess as if they've been stored in a plastic bag for a year or two, as they have been. Um, it's a kind of peanutty smell, but it's kind of a, I guess, stale peanut smell to them. Let's go ahead and try these. They have a very strange and not particularly pleasant taste. I'm not sure I'd go so far as to say they're rancid, but they're not that good if I'm going to be completely honest. I'm going to go ahead and try another one here. And I don't know exactly why. Maybe it's kind of a different breed of peanut than I'm used to having, but the flavor is definitely just off. Like I said, I don't think they're rancid. I mean, they certainly look fine, and the taste isn't really rancid. It's just a very strange and pretty unpleasant taste to it. Uh, I'm not sure if that 2012 there means that's when they were manufactured. I'm pretty sure this ration was packed in 2022 or 2023, so they shouldn't be that old. Just overall very strange. I'm going to go ahead and set those aside for now. And we can try these. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure what these are. One of the translations pointed to them being some kind of prune or something like that, but we're going to find out. Here we go. And I believe those are indeed prunes, although I can't say I've had very many prunes in my lifetime. Without any further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and try this. I can't recall ever having prunes before in my lifetime, but I would say these are basically just really big raisins. The taste is almost exactly the same, and so is the texture, and they even look the same. So I would guess they're really heavily related, and they taste almost exactly the same. These might have a little bit lighter of a flavor than most raisins, but overall they're really similar, and if you've had raisins, you know almost exactly what these would taste like. Alright, so we're almost ready for our main courses, but first up, let's go ahead and try and prepare this milk powder. I'm assuming you just pour the entire pack into one cup or glass. There's definitely a lot of it here though. Smells kind of strange, I can't quite pinpoint it, but I wouldn't say that's really a milky smell to it. But I'm going to go ahead and grab some water and just fill this up until it looks about right and then mix it up, and we'll try it then. Alright, so here we are. This is the minimum amount of water I could possibly conceive so much milk powder requiring. I'm going to go ahead and try this, and if it's not enough water, I'll go ahead and add more. It's a little bit strange. It's not entirely like milk, which of course I suppose you can't replicate milk with powdered milk. I'm going to go ahead and try this again and try to get a little bit more exact of a taste profile. It tastes pretty similar to milk, and it's not a bad taste at all. In fact, it's quite a bit better than I was anticipating. I had a fairly similar drink a while back, and it wasn't good at all, but this is actually pretty good. I would say it tastes most like milk, but with a little bit of whey added, or some kind of like protein or even grain or something like that. It tastes sort of like milk, but it's kind of a bit of an uncanny effect where it is milk, but it's not. It has a bit of a strange taste to it, and you can tell it's not quite milk, but it definitely has a pretty close flavor, and the texture is right there as well. It's a pretty nice and refreshing drink. Alright, without any ado, I'm going to go ahead and mix this up a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and try this. It's a very interesting dish. It has a very kind of creamy texture to it. I'm going to go in for another bite and try to get a little bit of this beef that it has here. It's kind of like a cream of mushroom soup, but instead of mushroom, you have this kind of grain substance. I'm pretty sure it's barley, but I couldn't get an exact translation. There's also a little bit of beef in here as well. Overall, it's honestly a really good dish. I quite enjoy this. I don't believe I've had it before in the Russian ration or anything like that. So this is new to me, and it's really good. Let's go ahead and try a little bit of this beef from the beef stew. Alright, here we go. That is some good tasting beef right there. I really like that. It's very nice. It's heavily salted, which I personally don't mind at all. In some dishes, salt can kind of be a little off-putting, but it's not overly salted. It just has a lot of salt in it. And it tastes like a really good quality cut of beef, and it's just really good. I'm going to go ahead and try this pearl barley stew now with a little bit of this cracker and just break it up. It's pretty good. It adds a new texture, and it's a good way of eating those crackers without just drying your mouth out by eating them plain. Overall, it's a pretty good combination. You can really eat that with or without the cracker, and I don't think it makes a huge difference flavor-wise, although the texture is, of course, a bit different. Alright, and we can try a little bit of this beef along with this little stew here. And that's just really good. There's really not much bad you can say about this. I mean, I'm sure some people don't like this kind of food, but from a quality and preparation standpoint and my personal taste, it's just really good. There's nothing you can really do to ruin this. I mean, try it with the crackers, mix it together, whatever you want to do, put some salt in it. It's really just really good no matter how you prepare it, and honestly, it's really good just the way it is. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. But my impressions from breakfast are that not only is it massively filling, and if I weren't filming, I definitely stretch this out over an hour or two by eating more of the peanuts and stuff like that for snacks rather than just having it for breakfast. But for filming purposes, it makes sense to eat it all at once, and this is a lot of food, and I'm going to struggle to be hungry by lunch. But overall impressions are just really good. Honestly, I was impressed by the quality, especially for a country like Kazakhstan. And the quantity is definitely there as well. You get a lot of food and you really can't go hungry like this. Alright, now that breakfast is over, let's go ahead and open lunch up and see what we have. Alright, so I went ahead and plated this and put those two stews on the warmer. It is getting pretty cold out this time of year where I live, so I'm going to go ahead and open up this tea and prepare this first. Rather than a instant powdered tea, it's just a regular old tea bag. And while we're waiting on that to steep, let's go ahead and try these. These were almonds, raisins, and apricot. So let's go ahead and open these up first. I believe that these are the almonds. Yep, and here we are. Let's go ahead and try these. Hopefully they're a little bit better than those peanuts we had earlier. There's no off taste or any hint of rancidity or anything like that, so quite a bit of a step up from those peanuts that we had earlier. Alright, next up are these things. I believe these are raisins. Right. Those certainly look like raisins. Pretty normal dried raisins. And those taste like perfectly normal raisins. Comparing them to the prunes, I would say they're a little bit sweeter than prunes are. These are also quite a bit more dry. The prunes still had some kind of residue or juice on them. These are perfectly dry, as you can see there. And yeah, they're nice raisins. They're pretty sweet. And they're just the same as you would get at pretty much any grocery store. Next up, let's go ahead and try this dried apricot. I'm not sure if I've had it before or not. In fact, I'm not really sure if the accepted pronunciation is apricot or apricot, but I guess I'll go with apricot. Here we go. Pretty large. They're very pleasant and sweet. They also have quite a bit of kind of moisture or juice left in them even after the drying process. They taste almost a little bit like a soft kind of fruit candy. They're honestly really good, and I quite enjoy them. They're really good, and they're nice and sweet with a little hint of sour to them. Alright, and this tea has steeped for a couple minutes, so I think it should be good to try now. Pretty standard black tea. These definitely do taste better than a instant tea like I got in the German ration quite a while ago. The ration was pretty good, but instant tea just doesn't quite stack up with actually using a tea bag. Alright, here we go. Everything is heated up and plated. I'm going to go ahead and say a quick prayer and we'll get right into this. Let's go ahead and try out this rice porridge first. It's a pretty nice rice porridge, but it is very plain, so I'm going to go ahead and use the included salt and see if I can make this dish a little more interesting. And the salt definitely gives it quite a bit more flavor and a little bit more of a complex flavor. Let's go ahead and try this now with part of this biscuit. It's pretty good. It's quite tasty. It's nothing completely exquisite, but it is a nice, simple, plain, and fulfilling meal. It also adds a great base as a way to mix in those biscuits and just kind of get rid of some of them by eating them. They do give you more than enough biscuits, so if you want to eat them all, then you'll probably want to mix them in here and do whatever else you will to make them just a little bit more interesting. But now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and try this beef porridge, or this beef stew. Alright, here we go. Let's try not to spill too much off to the sides, but thankfully those are all empty, so it doesn't really matter if we do. It's kind of like one big meatball. Alright, here we go. I don't think I'd quite describe it as a meatball. It's kind of just a large chunk of beef in a little bit of stew. It's pretty good. Once again, I do think this is cooked a little bit less than would be typically to taste here in the U.S. But I'm guessing that's just how they like to eat it over there. It's a very interesting cut of beef. It's sort of a little bit less dense and not as compact as you'd kind of expect. It's certainly not like a steak or anything like that. It's quite interesting. I'm going to go ahead and put in a little bit of this and we'll see how they taste together. And it's pretty good. Once again, it adds a lot of flavor and texture to those biscuits, which just are too plain really on their own. I'm going to go ahead and try them both together now. That's just the way to do it, in my opinion. That's just the best combination is to just mix them both together. This is a really meat heavy dish, and this is a really rice heavy dish. So if you just mix them both together, then you get a nice sort of a stew, porridge kind of kind of a rice and beef porridge. Alright, with breakfast and lunch finished, it's time for the last meal of the day. I have our supper right here. Let's go ahead and open this up. Alright, so I went ahead and put that main course on the warmer. That's going to be the only new thing about this particular meal in the ration, since we've had all of this other stuff at breakfast. But I'm going to go ahead and try again and just see if this pack of peanuts is a little bit better than the other ones. And unfortunately, those are the same. They're just very strange and not very pleasant to eat. But let's go ahead and move on to these prunes. Alright, here we go. They're quite good, and I'm actually not sure if I did have these at breakfast like I thought I did or not. I can't quite remember, but these are quite good. They're drier than what I had at breakfast, so maybe these are kind of a dried version of the ones I had at breakfast. I'm not 100% sure, but taste-wise, they're pretty good, and they taste quite a bit like an oversized raisin. I'm going to go ahead and try this again. They're quite similar to a large raisin, but the flavor is much, much more subtle than in a raisin. They're pretty good, and I quite like these. If you mostly like raisins, but you don't like how strong they taste, you would probably love these, and they're a nice complement to the meal. Alright, here we go. That's quite an interesting flavor. I don't think I've had buckwheat before, and it's quite a bit different than any grain I've had in the past. I'm going to go ahead and go in for another bite. It's extremely unique. It's almost like a taste similar to a mix between wheat and barley with a grain of rice kind of texture instead of having like a wheat texture. It's very strange, very unique, nothing I've ever had before, and it's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's the best I've had. Personally, I really enjoyed the other two grain dishes I had this ration. I think a little more than this one. And the addition of a side of meat was also really welcome to put a little bit more protein and flavor into the meal. But this is by no means bad. It's just a little bit different and not something I'm used to. I'm going to go ahead and try this with a cracker. And while the cracker doesn't really add much of a difference to the flavor, personally I do like the kind of uh, brittle cracker texture along in the mix. So personally I really like that. I'm going to go ahead and try this with a little bit of salt as well. And I do just much prefer it with the salt. It does give it that little kick of flavor that it really needs, in my opinion. While it's not always a bad thing, I do find the almost complete lack of seasoning in this dish to be not quite as tasty as it could be. And I do think something like some salt and pepper and maybe some other seasoning would definitely pick this meal up a bit. But like I said, it's really not bad the way it is at all. And with the salt, it's honestly a pretty good dish. And it's not a bad way to end off this ration review. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and then I will end with a couple of closing comments and thoughts I had about the ration. Alright, so that sums it up for my review of the 24-hour ration from Kazakhstan. Overall, impressions are pretty positive. I'd say overall it's a really good ration. You certainly won't starve to death eating those, and there's plenty of food for each meal. Some of the meals can be a bit plain, especially if you're used to having a lot of specialized sides and desserts that are commonly found in European and US rations. Especially missing are any kind of drink powders, like isotonic beverage bases or something like that. One pleasantly strange surprise was the milk powder drink. It didn't taste quite like milk, but it was still really good, and it was also pretty similar to milk. It was definitely cool to see that, since you wouldn't get anything like that in a European or US ration. So overall, I thought most everything was quite tasty and high quality. There were a couple items, just the two really, the last main course and the peanuts, that weren't entirely up to extremely high standards, but they also weren't bad or anything like that per se. The peanuts I really didn't like, but if I were starving, I certainly could eat them, and I don't think they'd make you sick or anything like that. They just tasted a little bit off. The crackers weren't especially flavorful, but they made a perfectly fine base for stuff like the chocolate hazelnut spread, as well as for mixing in with the main courses. The only thing I would say is really missed would be more of the chocolate hazelnut spread, or some kind of jams or pâtés or something like that. I don't think pâtés are that common in that part of the world, but I'm pretty sure jams are, because I know they're pretty close to Russia, both culturally and physically. And I know Russia really loves their jams, especially in their rations, and they have good jams. So it would have been nice to see some of that to go along with the very many crackers that were in this ration. But it wasn't a huge deal, and you can eat them plain just fine. It's just they're not the best crackers I've ever had. Alright, so that concludes my video on this ration. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and feel free to give it a like as well as a comment. If you didn't like it, as always, feel free to give it a dislike as well as a comment with some constructive criticism on how I could improve. If you have a recommendation for ration for me to try, maybe something you haven't really seen around too much that you'd like to see someone try, go ahead and give me a comment and let me know what it is, and I'll see if I can do that. My next ration, if all things go to plan, should be an American MCW. That's a meal cold weather. They're pretty high rated, so I'm really looking forward to trying that. And after that, sometime in the future, should be a French 24-hour ration. So I think that's going to be a really interesting one to try. If you're interested in seeing those, go ahead and hit the like button and the subscribe button, and ring the bell notification button for all future videos. If you're looking forward to seeing all of that, go ahead and subscribe and click the bell notification button, and you'll be notified whenever I release a new video. I really hope you enjoyed, and have a great day.